guest today is Douglas Noll, who holds both a JD and an MA and left a successful career as a lawyer to become a peacemaker. He is an award-winning author, teacher, trainer, and highly experienced mediator and co-founder of the Prison of Peace Project. Inmates who have gone through his program have learned to apply deep, empathetic listening skills, leadership skills, and problem-solving skills to reduce violence in their prison communities. To find out more about Douglas and get his latest book, De-Escalate: How to Calm an Angry Person in 90 Seconds or Less, visit dougnoll.com. Hi, Doug. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio for our Heartbeat of the World video series. I'm so grateful to have you out here today. How are you?
I'm doing extremely well, having a great day. How about yourself?
Oh, I am too, especially with you joining me this evening.
You look really happy.
I'm doing what I love most, which is connecting and interviewing people and helping them get the word out about their greatest wisdom out there. And you've written a wonderful book called De-Escalate: How to Calm an Angry Person in 90 Seconds or Less. And boy, could we use that these days.
Absolutely.
But before we go to going deeper into the book and some tips you might have for our audience, share a little bit about your backstory and what brought you to writing this book.
So, as by way of background, I am a lawyer, trained as a lawyer, and I practiced law for 22 years. And through a series of events that I won't bore you with, I ended up going back to school and getting my master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies. Now, I was trained by the Mennonites, which are one of the three traditional Protestant faith traditions in the Christian tradition. And I'm not a Mennonite myself, but they took me through a very rigorous 2.5-year process and taught me all about human conflict in ways that the law didn't even have a clue about. And it completely changed my life. So I left a very successful law practice in 2000 to open up my own peacemaking and mediation practice. And that led me into having a whole bunch of really cool experiences. But one of the project that I'm working on now that led to the book is my Prison of Peace project. And I started that in 2009 with my colleague Laurel Coffer when she received a letter from a woman serving a life sentence without possibility of parole. She was a lifer in the largest, most violent women's prison in the world at that time. And she was asking us to come in and teach the lifers how to be mediators and peacemakers to stop the violence. So Laurel read the letter to me and said, "What do you think?" And I thought about it for a second. I said, "I think we should do this." So we started in 2010 training 15 women, all lifers. And that was the beginning of the Prison of Peace project. Today we're in 9 prisons. We've trained over 600 inmates as mediators, peacemakers, and trainers. We have a program going in Greece and 3 prisons in Greece. And I think we'll be starting up in Connecticut probably next year sometime if all goes well. So overall, the years of dealing with thousands and thousands of inmates, both people I've trained directly and also inmates who have been trained by my trainers, I had inmate after inmate coming up to me and saying, "You know, if we had learned these skills 20 years ago, I wouldn't be in prison today." So, you know, it takes a while for the 50-watt light bulb in my brain to go off. And I finally figured out, you know, we're spending all this time teaching all these people these skills in prison. What would it be like if I went outside of prison, wrote a book, and started teaching the skills outside of prison? So that's what led to De-Escalate. And what's really crazy about the book was that Simon & Schuster picked up the book in November. I gave them a manuscript at the end of November. In February, my agent called and said, "This book made it to the executive vice president's desk in New York. She read it, the whole manuscript without stopping, which is very unusual, and picked up the phone and said, 'What's the earliest we can get this book out?'"
Wow.
So this book was produced from manuscript to out on the streets in 7 months.
Whoa. That is amazing.
So it's been kind of crazy.
But it goes to show how necessary it is and what a need there is for it. Now, what drew you in particular to mediation? I mean, because I would think being a lawyer, you're kind of into mediation at times in the...
Well, the thing about the law, I mean, I've come to realize that obviously the law and our judicial system play very critical roles in our society today. But the fact is that the law is not very good at resolving human conflict. It's well suited for some fairly narrow types of disputes. But because it's the only dispute system that we have with any formality, people run to their lawyers for all kinds of problems where they shouldn't be running to their lawyers. And there should be other processes available to help people solve conflicts that are not amenable to being abstracted into legal obligations or legal defenses. And I became frustrated that so many people would come to me with problems that were just really difficult to solve within the legal context. I finally just got sick of it, and I said there has to be a better way. And this was before mediation was becoming mainstream. It was just at the early stages of mediation in the late 90s. And so I didn't really intend to become a mediator, but I really wanted to learn about human conflict. And really not even work so much, although I do a lot of work with litigated disputes. I've really been a lot more interested in working in non-litigated disputes. For example, business partners who are having a conflict, disputes between joint venture investors and the board of directors, or the principals who started the company, family business conflicts, relationship conflicts in the business context where there's usually a lot of money at stake, emotions are very high, and people have a choice of either destroying their wealth in the legal system or figuring out how to make it all work. And so my business is all about helping people make it all work. And so, of course, over all these years of doing thousands of these things, I see a lot of emotion. Even in business, people say, well, there's not much emotionality in business. People get angry and frustrated, and they have the same emotions in business that they have in their family life. Now, they may not display the emotions the same way. The display rules are different, but they're still there. And what I've learned is that emotions impair decision-making. You cannot make a good decision in business if you are highly emotional. So what I finally figured out was that I have to de-escalate people before we can start problem solving and negotiating. And of course, all of this is all tied together. And then that's, of course, all of the experience over the years that led me into the book and the skills that they teach there.
Wow. From dealing with so many teachings of people and understanding this greater, what do you find that usually escalates things? Because even today, more than ever after last year's election, there's people escalating their emotions when it comes to their viewpoints on things, and it gets really out of hand. What causes people to go from zero to super angry and not being able to see anything but red?
Well, obviously there are a lot of things that can get people really emotional, but I think oftentimes it comes down to justice. It comes down to how we perceive this idea of justice. So, for example, in a family business conflict, it's a problem of what we call distributive justice, and that's equity, equality, and need. Equity says that I ought to be compensated in proportion to what I contribute. Equality says, hey, we're all equal partners. We all should be compensated equally. And need says, hey, mom, we got to take care of mom because she's 89 years old, and we got to take care of our children because they're going to take over the company when we get too old. So the question becomes, how do you balance those three different aspects of distributive justice? And you've got a sibling who's running the family farm, for example, and he's working his tail off to make money for everybody, but you've got the older brother playing saxophone in San Francisco and the sister who's a tennis pro in Phoenix, and they're all getting $250,000 a year, and he's working his butt off in 103-degree weather in the Central Valley trying to grow crops. There's going to be a conflict there.
Yeah.
So, you look at the political problem, same thing. I mean, we have other kinds of justice, and what you see is all these different definitions of justice are all inconsistent with each other. There are 9 different definitions of justice. They're all inconsistent, and so what people feel is a deep and abiding unfairness. So that's what's causing the problems.
So, not everyone has the capacity to have a mediator at hand when these difficult situations come arise in your life or in your business. But how do you begin to realize the different perspectives and bring them together? Because I'm thinking everyone comes to the table with their own perspective, and every single one they feel their form of justice or understanding of justice is the right and only one.
That's right. In fact, people don't even pay me to come in unless you've got a situation where I talk to one side and then the other, and what I think I'm in 2 different universes to who I'm talking to. And that is very normal. It's very normal for people to have entirely different perspectives on a problem because what we filter so much. We only pay attention to that which is emotionally salient to us. Everything else we filter out, and we can't even hear it. And when our beliefs are challenged, what happens in the brain is that dopamine is released to reinforce our existing beliefs in the face of contradictory but true facts. So I can confront you. If you have a very strong belief about something, I can confront you with the facts. All that's going to do is embed your belief deeper into the brain. Isn't that weird? Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
And that's one of the reasons why we have the polarity we have today, is because people don't understand that when there are deep-seated beliefs, whether it's beliefs around politics or religion or way of life or whatever it might be, arguing isn't going to work. It never works.
So
we have to have other ways of dealing with it.
If you have a very well-held belief in a religion, your religion, you think it's the right and only religion, and you're trying to cram it down someone's throat, all it's going to make them do is hold on to their belief that much stronger.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
It seems to me like a good way to start in de-escalating, as it were, would really be to try to get rid of the emotions out of a situation.
That's exactly right.
Really?
My mantra is de-escalate, then problem solve.
Wow.
Never try to problem solve first. And of course, what we tend to do is we want to go to the bottom line. This is all a bunch of BS. And so we try to problem solve, and all we do is make matters worse, because we're not taking the short amount of time necessary to get people calmed down so their prefrontal cortex can come back online and when they can start thinking again. Because when they're emotional, they can't think. We can be one of two ways. We can be emotional or we can think. But it's very difficult for us to be in an escalated situation either way.
Yeah. I love that you say that, Doug, because I remember early on in my partner Brian and I's relationship, when we'd have a fight, I wanted to talk it out and stay up all night long screaming and hollering, "We're not going to bed till we solve this." And Brian's like, "No, I need to leave, get some me time, get away from this, this fighting
right.
emotion." And I'm just like, "No, we have to deal with it." And we didn't get anywhere until we were able to disperse, get our emotions in check, and then come back.
Right. Now, what if I could show you a way that instead of that happening, you could calm him down in 90 seconds, he could calm you down in 90 seconds, and then you could solve your problem in about 3 minutes?
Love it.
That's what I teach, and that's what the book is all about. So here's the secret. I'm going to share the secret.
Okay.
3 steps. Pay attention. Take notes, everybody. There'll be a quiz at the end. Step number 1, ignore the words.
Okay.
Do not listen to the words. Let me repeat that. Do not listen to the words. Ignore them. For the next 90 seconds, they have no meaning. They don't exist. If you listen to the words, you're going to get pissed, you're going to get escalated, and now you're going to be useless to everybody. Ignore the words. Okay. Step number 2, guess at the emotional experience of the speaker. Guess at the emotional experience of the speaker. We have an innate ability as human beings to accurately read the emotional data field in other human beings. I call it the emotional data field because it's data, it's information, and we're really good at reading it. But I tell people to guess at it because a lot of people don't believe that they're very, very good at reading emotions. Actually, we're extraordinarily sensitive to other people's emotions. We just need to pay attention to it. So guess at the emotions.
Would that be empathy?
Not quite.
No, okay.
But when we're all done, we'll have empathy.
Oh, okay.
Step number 3, and here's the hard part.
Oh.
This is the hard part. State back the emotional experience of the speaker using a short declarative use statement. You are angry. You are frustrated. You are not feeling listened to. You feel like you've been treated unfairly. You feel sad. You're afraid. You feel unloved. Whatever it might be, whatever you might be picking up, state it back. The secret here is 1, no I statements. You would never say, what I think you're feeling is anger. Wrong, 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 wrong. All the neuroscience tells us why. The second thing you don't do is you don't ask a question. Are you angry? Never ask a question. Never use an I statement. Short, use statements. And now how do you know when you've got them de-escalated? The speaker is going to do 4 things. 1, give you a verbal response. Yeah, that's right. 2, nod the head up and down. 3, drop the shoulders. And 4, big sigh of relief. When you've got those 4 things going on, you're done. Or if you haven't gotten them in 90 seconds, back off and try again later. 90 seconds is all you can handle. That's about all you can handle. So just do 90 seconds. The neuroscientific studies that have studied this demonstrate what happens, what's going on in the brain. And essentially what is going on is when people are highly emotional, they are now unable to process their own emotions. They're in a condition called alexithymia. And they just simply cannot process their own emotions with their prefrontal cortex. We are literally loaning them our prefrontal cortex when we are labeling their emotions and feeding their emotions back to them. And the trick that we have to overcome is the fact that we think we have internal defense mechanisms that tell us, oh, we're being pretentious, presumptuous, manipulative. This is not right. We would never have the temerity to tell somebody else how they feel. All these feelings that come up are ways of managing our own anxiety about being vulnerable towards somebody else, because there is some vulnerability that occurs when we have to get right out there and say, oh man, you're really happy. You're really excited. Or you're really sad, you're really angry. And so those are the 3 steps. Ignore the words, guess at the emotions, state back the emotions with short use statements. Go for until you get the head nod and the sigh and the shoulder drop and the verbal response, or 90 seconds, whichever lasts longer. This is first of all, this technique never fails. When we began to design the curriculum for the prison project, we wanted to use techniques that work the first time, every time, without fail, because lives were at stake. If you can imagine the potential violence in a maximum security prison, and we're asking inmates to go in as peacemakers and stop fights and violence before it erupts, you could better believe that we wanted to make sure that when we trained those inmates, they had tools that really worked. And of course, these tools really do work, and they've been proven in thousands of stories that we've heard from the inmates as they worked. And of course, I've been teaching this for quite a while, and I have many, many hundreds and thousands of stories of people who've written to me and talked to me and said, this is just incredible how this stuff works. So, I mean, I just taught a workshop in Toronto last week, and I had about 100 people in the crowd. And for the 2 days of the workshop, I had people coming up to me and saying, this stuff's incredible. Lawyers and judges mostly just saying, this stuff really works. So it does. It really works. It's really powerful. And it's grounded on hard science. There's no wuju here. It's the real stuff.
That's great. And I'm guessing in your workshops or when you've worked in the prisons that you've actually had time for them to practice this on themselves, because I don't think it comes natural.
Absolutely. This takes practice. You know, typically when I teach this module, it takes about 4 to 6 hours, 6 hours to really get the basics. And then in the prisons, we come back every week or every 2 weeks for months to reinforce the skills. We don't move on in our curriculum to teach them how to do peacemaking or mediation until they have mastered this foundational listening skill and all the various applications that come off it. Because we've come to realize that unless they really know how to listen and they really know how to use these skills in appropriate ways, there's no way they can be effective peacemakers or mediators. So it's a foundational skill.
Yeah. And does this also play to talking to, say, an angry client on the phone? Does this still work?
Any human being in any communication. It works on the phone. It actually even works in email. I've used it in emails and text to calm people down. Yeah. I mean, it's not as good. You're much better being at least hearing a voice. But if you've got an angry client or customer on the phone, before you try to solve the problem, affect label them. You're really angry. You're really frustrated. Don't get defensive. They could say stuff like, you've cheated me, you've stolen all my money, you haven't delivered what you said, your product is 30 days. I mean, they can really be personal attack, personally insulting. It doesn't matter. Just ignore them. Don't take responsibility for anything. Just reflect their emotions. You're really angry. You're really frustrated. You feel betrayed. You don't feel like you got what you encountered. You're very disappointed. Whatever it takes, whatever emotions they're experiencing, just go with that. And eventually they'll say, yeah, that's right. Okay, you got them de-escalated. Now you can say, all right, how would you like to go about solving the problem?
Wow. I like that you mentioned that, because I have started out with angry clients saying, well, I'm sorry, we accept apology for that, and what can we do? And, I notice you're angry about this, but you're saying don't accept any responsibility. First, just get them to de-escalate and get away from their emotions.
It might not be your problem. You don't know that yet. But you can't even begin to solve the problem until you've got them de-escalated, and you can really understand what the problem is.
Wow.
And, I would say, of course, we all have to deal with customer service people and all kinds of stuff, and none of them are very effective at getting you frustrated, because you don't call no one wants to call customer service unless you really have to. Because you're going to have English is going to be a barrier, and knowledge is going to be a barrier, and it's just tough. I mean, it's like nobody goes to a lawyer unless they're really desperate. We don't go to customer service unless we're really desperate. So we're already upset when we're picking up the phone and having to call that 800 number.
Yeah.
And they just don't have the training to know how to calm people down.
Yeah. Well, we need you at all call centers then and the reception areas.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's really the secret. And then based on those 3 steps, once you foundationally understand that you are de-escalating the emotional centers of the brain, that this is all working off of neuroscience and how our brains work, then you can begin to see the applications of it. You can use it in business application, you use it with vendors, you use it with business partners, you use it with financial partners, anybody who comes into a situation upset for any reason, whether you're the cause of it or not, you can get them de-escalated quickly. You can move into problem-solving mode. And the other thing that happens, of course, is you get them into problem-solving mode and they get escalated again. So you just de-escalate them. And in my mediations and my peacemaking work, and then when I'm working as a consultant and facilitator in large internal business conflicts, I spend probably 80% of my time de-escalating, 20% of my time problem-solving.
Wow.
And it's a constant process of de-escalation problem solving, because once they calm down, that doesn't mean they're calmed down forever. Something else is going to get them triggered. They're going to get riled up again, and you have to back them off the window ledge. And it's just a constant iterative process.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsor, Neopost. Think about all the time small businesses spend to process and send mail and packages. If we spend just 15 minutes a day doing it, that's more than 7 full days a year focused on mailing and shipping. That's crazy! I recently spoke to Neopost, and they told me one of the smartest things to start doing today to save time and money is to use the IS-280 postage meter to handle all our mail processing without ever leaving my office. The IS-280 weighs, then automatically tells me what postage amount my mail or package needs. Not only do I pay 6% less to send first-class mail, but time is also saved by not having to run to the post office for postage. The IS-280 truly lets me spend more time managing business and less time managing mail. For a limited time, our listeners can get up to 6 months free by using the promo code SAVVY. Visit neopost280.com/savvy and enter your zip code to see if you qualify, followed by the promo code SAVVY to lock in 6 months free. Why does our emotions do that, get us to a point where we're escalated? I know it can be difficult situations, say
Right.
You're calling, but why did we keep getting back?
Why do we even have emotions?
Yeah.
Very simple reason. Emotions make us pay attention to our environment. They make us pay attention to our environment so that we can appraise what's going on and either run or approach. And we basically, we approach for 3 things: food and water, shelter, and sex. We run away from everything else. And that's how we're hardwired. And fundamentally, at a very base level in our brain, that's what's going on. So emotions make us pay attention to our environment. And when emotions get intense enough, they interfere with our ability to make decisions. In fact, all decision-making is emotional. There is no such thing as an unemotional decision.
Really?
All rational thinking is based on emotion. You cannot even begin to be rational until you're emotional first.
Wow.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Well, how would you even know what to be rational about unless you had some emotion telling you to pay attention to this?
Wow.
Think about that. Now, it also turns out that the emotional part of the brain is, the emotional systems of the brain are much, much larger than the frontal cortex and the prefrontal cortex. So just on the basis of math, it's like we're 98% emotional and 2% rational. But if you really think about it, there is no way that you can be rational or make good decisions unless you're emotional first, because emotions are telling you what to pay attention to. They're telling you what's salient in the environment. They're telling you, what problem do I have in front of me? Then they're telling you, allowing you to go through scenarios and feeling what it would be like, emotionally experiencing what it would be like to make one decision versus another, finally choosing a decision, and then feeling what it's like to make that decision. Notice that it's all feeling. It's all emotion. It's true for everything.
Wow.
It's true for everything.
I think many of us, including myself, are often disconnected, not realizing how much emotions play a part in our
That's
life.
right. Well, we've been brainwashed by our culture wrongly. It goes all the way back to the Greeks and then the Neoplatonists, and then it got injected into the Christian theology by Augustine, and then it got picked up again in the Enlightenment. And we've been brainwashed that rationality defines what it is to be a human being, and that's just wrong. We are emotional beings, not rational beings. And as soon as we can start recognizing that emotions are what are driving us every single waking second, all of a sudden everything changes. And we begin to see behaviors in a completely different light, both our own and others people's. And now we start cultivating emotional intelligence, and we start cultivating emotional skills that up until this point, we've been denying because we've been told ever since we were 2 years old that emotions are bad. You skin your knee, tough it up, be a man, don't be a sissy, don't be a crybaby, right? I mean, what are we told at 2 years old? We're told that emotions are bad, that it's weak, that it's kumbaya, that it's being, for guys, not for women, but for guys, it's like being a girl, right? And so men are culturally trained to deny and repress emotion, which is totally against how the brain operates. Totally against how the brain operates, which is why there's so much dysfunction and so much anger. You know, and I mean, think about this: from 2 to 4 years old, 2-year-olds, that's when their emotional centers of their brain are maturing during that time period, 24 months. They have to experience every single emotion they can multiple times in order to categorize those emotions and be able to work with them and understand them and deal with them. So that means that a 2-year-old is going to go from rage to utter giddiness, back to rage, to exhaustion, to sadness, to everything in the span of 30 seconds, right? Or 2 minutes. Every 2-year-old's going to do that. And so what do we do with these 2-year-olds that seem to be emotionally crazy on us? It drives us nuts because we don't know how to respond to their emotions. The best thing we can do is affect label their emotions. We label their emotions as they come up. Teach them how to categorize their own emotions. They will calm down a lot faster, and it will make life a lot better for everybody in the family. The other thing that will happen is if we do the old way, which is to say don't be a sissy and tell them not to be emotional and don't cry and be a man, imagine what that kid's going to be like at 15, and he starts to get interested in girls, and now he's feeling this urge to have an intimate relationship with a young woman, but he is emotionally repressed. That's a train wreck waiting to happen. And it happens every single day with most young boys. Because they have not been trained in emotional competency.
I do think it's probably worse for boys in our culture, but it's interesting. Growing up, I was a big fan of Star Trek, and
Spock.
And one of the aliens that we were told was more enlightened than humans were the Vulcans.
Totally wrong. Totally wrong. What do we call a person who has no emotion as a human being?
I don't know.
Psychopath.
Really?
That's
they have
right.
no emotions?
They have no emotions.
Oh my gosh.
In fact, the clinical condition for psychopathy is atrophied amygdalae. That's the very important parts of our brain, very small but very important parts of the brain. They've been atrophied, and so psychopaths have no emotions. They don't feel anything, and so they can do heinous acts and not feel any pain or regret or anything at all. They're totally emotionless.
And no empathy towards another person.
No empathy at all. They are totally. So let's think about Vulcans and Spock. Well, Spock had a problem because he had a human mother and a Vulcan father, right?
He was
So, but let's think about that. Think about what it would be like to be in an emotionless environment. It would be horrible. And even if you watch the Star Trek movies, you know, the trajectory of Spock's life, which is laid out in a lot of the movies, they're still very emotional. They just repress it. And I say that's very unhealthy. And it leads to a lot of conflict, and it leads to a lot of misunderstanding about how we behave with each other. So it's powerful stuff. When we start working with this and thinking about it and giving some privilege to emotion over rationality, we first of all, we become better thinkers, and we make better decisions because we start questioning, how is my decision being influenced by my emotions? What feelings are coming up for me as I think about this decision? How is that distorting my decision making? Am I engaging in what Kahneman calls system 1 thinking, which is autonomic thinking, or do I need to move into a higher level of thinking called system 2, reflective thinking and algorithmic thinking, which is more rules-based, and then scenario planning, hypothesis. That's where we really think of rational thinking, is in the algorithmic and reflective parts of the brain. So how do we know where to move? How do we know when to make conscious choices around which decision-making system we should be invoking when we have a problem facing? It's emotions that tell us what to do.
Wow. And this goes to show, this recalls for me, Doug, when I've had a big decision to make. I think 2 years ago, I had a big business deal I was going to do with a new company. But from the get-go, we sat down for our first meeting. I felt inside this troublesome. I couldn't identify what it was, but there was something inside of me saying, and I couldn't identify it. And I went through, because everyone was saying this is going to be a great deal, go through with it. And not a month or two into us starting out, there was a whole bunch of problems that came about. And my friend was like, later on, you had feelings about this. But it was the identifying. My intuition was telling me something's up, but I couldn't identify.
That's right. So intuition is a really powerful way of seeing a problem, but really not being able to articulate it. And so what we have to learn is that when we have intuition, or we have that feeling that something doesn't seem right, we have to stop, slow down, and pay attention to that feeling. Analyze it, saying, I'm feeling anxious about this. I'm feeling a little bit of, I'm feeling troubled by this. I'm feeling uncertain and confused. And then the proper thing to do is start asking questions. Why am I feeling this way? And then ask questions of the people around me. I'm feeling a little confused here, anxious. I wouldn't say something doesn't sit right, because that sounds blameworthy, and I don't want to do that. I would say I'm feeling a little unsettled. Let's sit down and talk about this a little bit more. And, start asking. Maybe you have to ask harder questions. And maybe there's an elephant on the table that you don't want to look at because the deal looks like it's too good a deal to turn up, and yet it turns out there's a real liability out there. And you're just ignoring that liability because the candy pop looks too good to pass up.
Sounds about right.
Well, that's exactly what happens in business.
Yeah.
We make decisions because the upside looks great, but there's something that's telling us, warning us, wait a minute, there's a big downside here. That's emotions. And if we don't if we don't know how to pay attention to our emotions, if we don't learn how to be self-aware, we're going to tend to ignore that feeling. It's just and we'll dismiss it because it's not, quote, rational, and we'll be really sorry about the result we're in. So one of the things that I do, people will bring me in oftentimes at the beginning of deals to do what I call strategic facilitation. And we will work through a lot of these emotional issues and find out how people are really feeling and where they're really coming from and where their uncertainty is. And unfortunately, well, I guess it's fortunate, but sometimes when we do strategic facilitation and we're trying to really explore the motivations for why people want to do business together, the deal falls apart because people realize that what they thought was not what was real. And although they're unhappy the deal fell apart, they're really happy they caught it before it fell apart, when there was a big investment and the lawyers got involved.
Yeah.
And then the other times we do strategic facilitation and go through these processes, and it just makes the deal that much stronger because people really understand each other in a deep way.
And now you are able to really put out there really what both sides desire.
That's right. What are their real interests here?
Exactly.
What's really motivating them? And it's not about negotiation. It's about finding out what their interests are and what's driving them and what their emotional needs are, and then making sure that the deal satisfies all of that. Because if the deal doesn't satisfy that, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff is all very important. It's all business driven, but you're not going to learn about this in an MBA school. Business school, they don't teach this stuff, just like they don't teach leadership, because business professors, graduate business professors who have PhDs in this stuff don't get published on this kind of stuff. They say, leave this to the neuroscientists, but this is not our bailiwick. And unless we can use numbers quantitatively and analyze this stuff, it has no relevance in business. Well, that's a bunch of crap. So as a result of that, we have a lot of MBAs coming out that are poorly skilled in these ideas.
In working with folks either in the jails or companies, where have you seen the biggest impact in using this technique and what you've trained people in happen? How did it come about?
Leadership. One word, leadership.
Really?
Leaders that know how to use these skills are incredibly effective at getting powerful performance out of their organizations. And the leaders who take these skills and teach it 2 levels down, and require 2 levels down to be teaching it 2 levels down, and requiring them to teach it 2 levels down. So the leader's job is to teach leadership 2 levels down. Those people are extremely successful. Wow. They're not only working with their direct reports, but they're working with the reports of the direct reports. And their whole job is to build leadership all the way down to the customer. So that the customer is dealing with a leader, not just an associate.
Wow.
That is a job of leadership, and that's where this stuff is most effective.
Wow. You know what I'm taking away from here that is really, really powerful is that often when I go into businesses and I've been asked to consult in a financial capacity, helping people with cash flow and your money's not coming in effectively enough, why?
Right.
But what I find talking to a lot of employees and bosses and supervisors is often they don't feel like they matter.
Of
And
course.
yeah. And
Because there's no leadership. Here's the thing. People go to business school and they learn how to manage. But here's the secret. We manage things and we lead people.
Wow.
People are not things. We have to lead them. We cannot manage them. If we think of people as things to be managed, we're going to have nothing but chaos and disappointment and frustration and low-performing organizations. If we can start thinking about leadership, then it's a whole different paradigm. And here's the thing that's really sad. When I do all my leadership work and I'm training in leadership, one of the first questions out of the box is, write down the most important leader in your life, the one person whom you'd walk off a cliff for, and tell me who that person is and why you would do that.
Yeah.
And you know something? About 1 out of 1,000 people can name somebody in their professional lives that they had a leader like that. Most of them talk about their mother or father as being their leader.
That's sad.
And they heard people have been in business for 20 and 30 years, and I said, you mean you can't name one person whom you would found as such a dynamic leader that you would follow them anywhere? No. Isn't that sad?
Very. And
then the challenge is, all right, what would it be like to be that person? All the people in your organization, where they would, if I were to ask them this question in 5 years, they would say, this guy or this woman is the best leader I've ever worked with. I would follow him or her anywhere. I'll do anything for them. They're fantastic.
Yeah. And what is it? Is it the paying attention to the emotion aspect?
That's a large part of it. It's understanding how to work with conflict, because that's a big part of leadership, is understanding how to work with conflict. And understanding how to work with conflict is based, first and foremost, having this foundational skill of knowing how to de-escalate people. But it's also a concept. It's not my invention. It was developed at Harvard. The concept of adaptive leadership, knowing when you have a technical problem and when you have an adaptive problem, and what kind of leadership style do you need to implement in order to work and successfully solve the problem at hand. A long time ago, there's an apocryphal story of, I think the guy had just been appointed as CEO of Mercedes-Benz, and he went into the factory on the factory floor one day and was giving a talk and introducing himself. And one of the workers stepped in and said, well, we've been making the best automobiles in the world for 50 years. Why do we need you? And he said, great question. Let me get back to you on that. And so he came back the next year and gave the talk. Same worker raises the question, raises his hand and said, well, do you have an answer? And he said, yes, I do. I said, my job is not to manufacture automobiles. That's your job. You make the best automobiles in the world. My job is to stand up tall and look out over the horizon and look at all the risks and opportunities that are out there that you don't have the time or inclination or ability to look at. Look at those opportunities and figure out how to guide us around those lions that are out there, over to the watering hole, over to where the food is, so that we can be thriving 50 years from now. That's my job, and that's what a leader does. I'm out there looking out over the horizon, trying to understand the opportunities and dangers and guide us successfully out over the horizon so that we can continue to manufacture the best automobiles in the world.
Wow.
That's a great definition of part of what a leader is all about.
Yeah.
It's not about hierarchy. It's not about who's got control. It's not about who's the boss. It's not about who gets the big money at the end of the day. It's all about, how do I work with my people? How do I provide safety, security, and protection and guidance?
Yeah.
That's my job as a leader.
Wow. And what I've gotten from talking to a lot of people who are not in the leadership positions is that they feel that they're really not listened to. And so I'm guessing one part is really just being in tune with your group, seeing where their greatest gifts and talents are, and getting them to use it in the best capacity to serve.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Can you imagine what it would be like if your employees felt like they were listened to by you? And you can do that in 30 seconds. You listen to them, you ignore the words, pay attention to their feelings, reflect back their experience, their emotional experience in just a few short words. Those people will be with you for life. They'll do anything for you. You've just listened them into existence.
Wow. That's awesome.
Extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Extremely powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is. I recall many years ago, Oprah saying on her show that she discovered after all these years what people really, really want, everyone, is to be heard.
That's right. And when you listen to people in this way, the way that I teach, it is incredibly transformative. And you will see it. It's not something that's going to happen next week. It's not going to be something that happens in the afternoon. It's going to happen right now, and you're going to see a major transformative change in another human being in less than a minute. It is unbelievable to watch, and it never fails because our brains are hardwired this way. It's how we're hardwired. We can't help but respond.
Wow. Well, I don't want anyone to leave here without finding out how they can get your awesome book, De-Escalate, and work with you if they're a business out there who needs some mediation skills.
So to get the book, I mean, it's obviously available at all the usual places, but you can also I have a special offer that if you want the book for free, I have a benefactor as long as he puts up the money. I have a benefactor who's very interested in seeing that millions of people get this book. So the deal is, we'll buy the book, you pay for shipping. And then if you do that, then you get an opportunity to get my online course, which is only $125, which will teach you all of this in about 4 hours worth of time with a big annual workshop. So it's really high value. And to get all of that, to go there, just go to my website, Doug Noll, DOUGNOLL.com, DOUGNOLL.com. Banners on the front page. Click on the banner. You'll go right to the stuff. You can do DouglasNoll.com. I've got all my name variations. I've reserved all the URLs, so they all point to the same place. You can also Google me, Doug Noll. I'm all over Google, so I'm really easy to find. And, of course, people can contact me, and I'm happy to chat with people by email or phone or whatever. I mean, I'm very accessible. Like many people of my work, I work by myself. I don't have a staff. I don't have an army behind me. So when you call me, you're more. If you don't get me, it's because I'm working somewhere. But I do return calls and respond within 24 hours. So, anyways.
This has been awesome.
I have a great life. It's wonderful.
I'm so grateful that you were able to share this very pertinent, important information for all businesses and people out there who want to be able to de-escalate. And in this time of chaos and polarity, we need it more than ever.
Well, I think you're right, and I think that my message really is: let's use 21st century skills to solve 21st century problems. Let's not use skills that were developed in the 40s and 50s, or even skills that are still hanging around from the 19th century. That was then. Now is now. We have a completely different framework, a different society, a different way of about doing everything. It's time that we started communicating and listening and working with each other in 21st century ways. And so that's what I'm all about.
This is great. Well, I thank you so much, Doug, for coming to share your great wisdom today on Savvy Business Radio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Savvy Business Radio runs in syndication on 8 AM/FM stations nationwide, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out in a bigger way, call 732-474-7375 or email Christina at savvybusinessradio.com.